My questions are, is it communication? Is it art? Is it both? Or is it neither? So let's talk about fashion first. You know, women have a lot more choices than men in terms of what they're allowed to wear and what they can wear before they're considered to be nonconformist. So I brought some of my dolls to illustrate fashion choices. This is what men usually wear. Suits, variation upon that. If, you know, it signifies hierarchy. You know, I've heard all sorts of feminists talk about the tie, and I won't repeat their remarks. But, you know, there's not a lot of variation in this. A suit is a suit, is a suit, is a suit. And men who wear suits buy into hierarchy, and men who don't are not necessarily buying into hierarchy. Then, you know, men can get a little bit more fancy-dancy here, you know, but the hair will be a marker for them. If they wear long hair, there will be assumptions made. So this guy is clearly not within the hegemonic masculinity mold because he has long hair. And then if you go for the Lord of the Rings look, someone will probably assume that you've escaped from a filming or that you have some psychological problems. You probably don't want to walk down the street wearing this man because it's just not appropriate. Women often buy into that hegemonic hierarchical thing, and I don't have any suits for my dolls because I hate them on myself, so why would I subject my doll to it? But this is as close as I can get. So this is a variation on the suit. You know, she's wearing a jacket, but it's a print skirt. You know, it's not solid. I remember all those terrible pieces of information from John Malloy about what women should wear in the early 80s. You know, the power suit navy blue. I hate navy blue. A touch of red, not a lot of red, just a tad. You know, 4 pieces of jewelry, earrings, necklace, watch, ring. You know, nothing else. All these things that we had to do. So, but you know, she's not going to be remarked on very much. This is a very ordinary kind of outfit, and women have a lot more, you know, variation before people think that they're kind of weird. This looks like one of our EPU students if she got out of her pajamas to come to school, right? You know, long hair, pretty hair. Sort of a boho kind of look, probably a Gap or something like that. And, you know, it's very ordinary. It wouldn't be remarked on. On the other hand, if one of our students showed up wearing this to class, we might want to talk to her a little bit about appropriate attire. So, but there's a long distance between that first suit and the steampunk torn nylons, boots, goggles on the hat look that Delilah Noir, which is her name, is sporting here. Okay, so fashion, you know, women and men have different kinds of choices. And fashion clearly communicates. I rejected suits in 1991 when I became a full professor because I decided I never wanted to be a dean. I realized that being a dean was like herding cats. We've heard the metaphor before. All you can do is open a can of tuna, hope they come to the smell. I had no desire to supervise people like me. Really. I mean, let's be serious. So that was the point at which I rejected conformist clothing. I gave up my suits. I had to buy one 2 weeks ago because they asked me to come be a keynote speaker at a lawyers' convention. If you're going to go swim with sharks, you better wear armor, right? So I bought a suit, and remarkably ironic that I'm 6 weeks from retirement and I just bought a suit. Anyway, so fashion clearly communicates. You know, I've rejected hierarchy and hegemonic femininity by choosing my boho Stevie Nicks retro look up here, which I really like, and it's comfortable. Much more comfortable than probably some of the things you're wearing. Pantyhose, I mean, who invented that? Okay, so fashion communicates status or position in hierarchy. Clearly it does that. It tells us about individual personality. All of you have made fashion choices this morning, and those fashion choices, whether you want them to or not, are communicating something about you. You know, the particular school on the West Campus that chooses to be very dressed down for no particular reason, whose members are not in this room, so I can say this, I don't understand their rejection of hierarchy in such a clear and obstinate kind of form because they always look like they've just woken up and come to school. But, you know, they are indicating their individual personality. You know, clothing indicates relationships with others, like a wedding band, and clothing indicates memberships in communities. So if you wear a uniform, you know, you wear a little pin that says APU on it, you know, a little crooked little cross, you know, that we all were given about 10 years ago. That means you've been here longer than 10 years because you have the crooked little cross, you know, as opposed to the newbies who don't have a crooked little cross. So, you know, fashion communicates. And the question I want to ask is fashion also art? Does it function as art? So we have, this is sculpture from Kate McGuire, and it's made of feathers. Beautiful piece of art. Clearly, you're not going to do anything with it. You're not going to wear it. But feathers also happen in fashion. This is by Alexander McQueen's successor, Sarah Burton, and those are feathers that constitute the dress. Does it stop being art because it's worn on a body? Does it stop being art because it moves around with a person? Another example is Janice Sturbeck's Vanitas flesh dress for an albino anorexic. I don't know how people come up with some of their names, but this is actually made of flank steak that's been pounded and sewn together. And it's on a dress form, and it's in a museum. And so someone has determined that that's art. Is it art when Lady Gaga wears her meat dress? I have to tell you, you know, finding one image of Lady Gaga to use was so difficult because there were so many to choose from. But I think she thinks of herself as sort of a walking art form. And so is it art? Is fashion art? I offer no conclusion. I just raised the question. Form. Let's talk about architecture. Architecture is clearly a form of art. You know, in fact, it was interesting. I was reading reviews of Frank Gehry's work, and one person said that he was very meticulous about keeping records, keeping his drawings, signing and dating them, because he wanted to have a sense of his impact on history and his identity as an artist. I'm thinking, what's wrong with that? You know, you should document your work. But this person was very, you know, very critical of that. So, you know, architecture is design, it's elements of art. Is it also a form of communication? Good question, right? Well, we know in medieval times, churches were supposed to communicate something, weren't they? God is big, we are small. That seems like a good communication. We also have the Eiffel Tower. What did it communicate? Well, think of when it was built. Think of the purpose for which it was built. It was a symbol of progress. It was a symbol of invention. It was something to make Paris a focal point. I mean, there's all sorts of purposes there that the Eiffel Tower was meant to communicate. We have, of course, Disney Hall, my favorite place. I love Disney Hall. I mean, the whole place functions like an instrument. The sound is so good. And when I'm inside, I marvel at the way the walls curve. And then I think about the physics of doing that, you know, and how they had to plan and how they had to make that happen. And I'm thinking, how'd they do that? You know, I mean, it's really, really cool. And it communicates something. You know, it communicates the elegance of what's happening there. Clearly, it's a different venue than the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion was. Remember the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion? Short, squat, sitting up on a patio. You have to come up to see the art, you know, and you have to come up to hear the music. Kind of an interesting difference between the two of them. And then I'm going to pick on our corner just a little bit. Now, having been here 30 years, I remember when the corner was a farmhouse. And in fact, when I came here for my first interview, I drove past APU thinking Citrus was the university because I didn't see anything that looked like a university where we were. But the farmhouse came down, and we built Ronald Hall and Munson Chapel and whatever the school is called, the musical. What is it, Warren? I keep blocking that out. So, when it was first built and there was no vegetation on it, you could have put a person with a rifle up there and a German Shepherd, and people would have thought it was a prison. It looked grim. It looked horrible. And even today, with all of its vegetation, I'm sorry I didn't get a front picture of it, but you know, this squat building sits on the corner, which is our face to the community. And this squat building sits there all closed off. You know, there is no way for people to walk onto our campus because the gates are often closed. You know, they're sort of unpredictable. There's no signage that says the entrance is up here. my friends who came, even with a map, we're going, we finally found you, because it's not an inviting campus. We haven't done the work that we need to do to put a face to the community that says, we are here to be with you in community. You know, we're here, you're there. Stay put. You know, whenever you have architecture that doesn't allow foot traffic, you have made a decision about who belongs in your space. And so I think, you know, there's nothing anyone can do short of tearing it down, but, you know, something, I hope we can do something about that corner, because I don't think it communicates what we really want to say. So like Inigo Montoya, you know, in The Princess Bride, I do not think that word means what you think it means, you know? I do not think the architecture means what we think it means. Okay. Bathroom fixtures. What about bathroom fixtures? Well, they exist primarily to you know, assist us in cleansing and disposing of waste, and they're kind of interesting. They have a function to them. Do they communicate? Can they be art? Well, Marcel Duchamp certainly thought so. This is a urinal that he called Fountain. This was during the Dada movement, and maybe it was a joke, but it was in a museum. It was in a gallery. It was treated like art. Well, Marcel seems to have some current followers, because there's a guy in San Francisco who makes urinals that look like flowers. These are by Clark Sorensen. He has a number of different urinals. I did not want to show his urinals based on George Bush and his politics, because they were really quite offensive. But leave it, you know, this is in a gallery. This is in a museum. Someone sees this as art. Does it communicate? I don't know. And then we have, you know, different kinds of things that are sort of meant to look artsy, you know, like bathtub. Isn't that a lovely bathtub? It's completely impractical. Where's the water going to go when you put your body underneath it? All over the place. Isn't that a beautiful sink? It's gorgeous. I made the mistake of putting black marble in my bathroom at home. I'll never repeat that mistake. It's never clean. I mean, it's clean for 5 minutes after I clean it, and then it's dirty again. You know, it never looks like it does in the showroom. Well, so it's functionality, the trump card. I could not resist including this one. Obviously, a musician's bathroom. These are the things that keep me awake at night. Aren't you glad I'm retiring?